In despair and trembling, one boy said the accusations were false and he did nothing. However, the old man claimed that the defendant had no right to speak to him. At that moment, he ordered the guards to take the boy away, but the boy continued to scream that he was being falsely accused. Still full of despair, he shouted for them not to ruin his life. This is the city of Katarov, where the main character was born and raised. This place is famous for its rank S dungeon called Katarov Dungeon. This is the reason many adventurers come to the city to conquer dungeons, making this place always crowded. So, in this very place, the main character is just a farmer. He looked intently ahead. He realized that the fields were being destroyed. Suddenly, a man named Darga appeared on the scene. As the son of the city chief, he approached with a strange smile. The bully said that his father told him that the main character's annual contribution was too low. The boy became worried again. The boy realized it was these people who destroyed the fields. It was explained that the boy was actually an alx. He bowed his head and apologized to the bullies. People with light gray hair like him are called alx, and in this story, they are the subjects of persecution. It is rumored that once the alx betrayed humanity and helped the devil, even though they beat you, even though they destroyed your fields for no reason. Unfortunately, the boy's only choice was to endure it all, the weight of his circumstances pressing down on him as he gritted his teeth, unable to escape the harsh reality. After the beating, he returned to the city center. A girl appeared in front of him saying that Darga and his friends beat him again. This girl is Namia, who said he would take care of you. Namia is the daughter of a neighboring farmer and his only friend in the city. After finishing bandaging, the main character thanked her, and the girl worriedly asked why they kept harassing him. With a sad expression, he said there was nothing he could do and blamed his gray hair. A little embarrassed, the girl explained that she really liked his hair color. At this time, the boy thought that his gray hair was a curse. But Nami always says such things. Changing the subject, she attracts Kiska's attention, announcing that she will marry Darga. This news completely shocked the main character, making him silent and fake smile. He said he understood and congratulated her. Hearing that, the girl also felt surprised and a bit awkward. She asked Kiska if that was okay with him. Then she asked him if he planned to stay in the city forever, and he replied that he might be nervous. She warns him that she doesn't like villagers arguing with him, and that if he stays here, he might die. Embarrassed, he said there was nothing he could do. Suddenly, the girl grabbed his hand. She gets scared and says they should run away from the city together. This new revelation completely surprises the main character. She explained that she had money at home, and with that money, they could find a place to live together where no one would know them. He asked her if she really wanted to do that, and she said yes. She didn't want to marry that man. Then the blonde-haired boy approached, his footsteps steady and deliberate, his expression unreadable as he drew closer, clearly with something important to say. He kissed her and said he loved her. She replied that she loved him too. That evening in the village, he carried a sack on his back. He smiled because he knew that tonight, you and Namia will leave Katarov City. He was full of excitement. He thought that with Namia, he would forget the bad days that had passed in this city. However, when he went to his friend's house, suddenly heard her scream. She asked them to stop. He recognized it as her voice, and he hurried into the house. In desperation, he ran back to her room. He called her name. When he opened the door, he found her lying in bed with 3 bullies. The only thing the main character can say is her name. Frustrated, Darga called him Alx. Kiska asked confused what was going on. Then the bully commented that it was obvious just by looking aside. Kiska saw her girl turn away completely. Kiska then orders the bully to leave now. In anger, Kiska punched the bully in the face and told him to stay away from her. Darga was even more upset, and then Darga punched Kiska in the stomach. He finished Kiska with a knee kick. The raised knee hit Kiska in the face. Then they all rushed at him, and they started beating him. Behind, Namia begged them to stop, and one of the men asked Kiska what he wanted. Darga declared Namia his wife. Darga then looked at one of his friends as they got an idea. One of the bullies pressed the boy against the wall while another grabbed his arm. In a rather gentle way, they started pulling his nails. And then with great brutality, he tore off Kiska's fingernails. When you feel intense pain? Kiska screamed in pain, her voice raw and desperate, as the searing agony from the wound coursed through her, threatening to overwhelm her resolve. The bully smiled. He spoke again, and they continued torturing the boy, but Namia intervened to make them stop. She declared that she would speak. She begged them to stop doing this. The desperate hero told Namia to stop, but then the bully punches Kiska in the face. He asked who gave Kiska permission to speak. Kiska looked towards her friend. He begged her not to say anything more. The bullies continued to beat Kiska, and Kiska's consciousness gradually faded. When Namia told everything, Darga trembled with anger. Namia started crying. Angry Darga strangled the girl. Meanwhile, her eyes looked at Kiska, her friend. Kiska's eyes then began to close, her eyelids heavy with exhaustion, as the world around her blurred into a soft, fading haze. The next day in the village, someone said that Kiska took advantage of Namiya's parents being away from home to break into her house and kill her. His sentence was banishment to an S-class dungeon. Kiska collapsed. The boy remembered with certainty that Namiya was killed by Darga out of anger and because of the truth. These crimes were eventually blamed on the boy. At this moment, the old man asked the boy if he had any last words to say. The boy asserted his innocence countless times, his voice growing more desperate with each repetition. But no one seemed willing to believe him. However, this is only part of the false testimony that Darga and his friends gave. Additionally, the village chief, who was the bully's father, quickly silenced everyone. There is no other choice. The old man declared he would carry out the sentence, but would show a little mercy. The old man ordered the guards to cut the ropes that bound the boy's hands. Darga scoffs at the situation, saying that this won't change anything, and the boy will die no matter what. The blonde boy thought that Darga might be right, and that nothing would change because he wouldn't survive. At that moment, the old man ordered the guards to continue, and they pushed the boy. He ended up standing on a drawing that looked like a magic circle. The circle continuously glows. He started crying. Kiska declares that he hates them. Kiska hates Darga, the friends who killed Namiya, and the village leaders. People who made false accusations without hearing a word from you. When you cry, he kept saying that he hated all of them. A while later, the main character wakes up. You're actually in prison. He was scared. He wondered if this was an S-rank prison. This is called a Katarov's dungeon. At that moment, he began to hear a roar. When he looked closely, he noticed something coming. A dark figure emerging from the shadows, its presence sending a chill down his spine as it drew nearer with unsettling speed. It was an A-rank armored bear. When he saw it coming towards him, the boy was completely frightened and trembling. He remembered hearing about it from adventurers, a monster that, if seen, meant you were as good as dead. He was scared. He started to run away from the monster. But the bear is very fast, and the bear quickly overtook him. It tried to attack the boy but missed, smashing the ground instead. As he continued running, he said he was going to die. He couldn't bear it anymore. He started calling for help. A figure appeared. The shadow asked if he really wanted help right now, even though he was very scared, his voice trembling slightly, as he tried to stand firm in the face of growing doubt and fear. He started saying yes and gently begging for help. That figure disappeared, and in its place a girl appeared. She held out her hand and told the protagonist that she would grant him an ability. At that moment, a notification appeared, its bright, glowing text flashing before his eyes, offering cryptic words that only added to the mystery of what was unfolding. Message indicating that the save and reset capability has been received. Then the figure disappeared, vanishing into the shadows as if it had never been there, leaving behind an unsettling silence and a lingering sense of unease. Kiska wondered if this ability could do anything against the armored bear, and also wondered how to use it. However, never mind those things. The bear continued to move towards him. This time it punched the boy hard in the face. The punch was so strong that the boy flew away, his body hurtling through the air before crashing to the ground with a thud. Dazed and struggling to regain his senses, and with just that punch the boy died, his lifeless body crumpling to the ground, leaving behind a cold silence that felt impossible to break. However, a moment later, he stood up in panic. He realized that he wasn't actually dead, his breath shallow but steady. As his eyes slowly opened to the world once more, confusion and disbelief clouding his thoughts. He looked at his hand. He said he was dead and wondered why he was still alive. As he tries to understand what just happened, the armored bear appeared behind him, its massive form casting a shadow over him. Its glowing eyes fixed intently on the boy, as the ground trembled beneath its heavy footsteps. The monster seemed angry at its target. Without hesitation, it punched him in the face again. With this punch, the main character dies again, his body collapsing in an instant. The world around him fading to black as the cycle repeated once more, leaving him to face the same fate all over again. He woke up in fear, and then he stood up, realizing that he had revived again. He was sure the armored bear had killed him before. Again, the bear appeared behind him, and the bear threw another punch. Kill him again. As if the first death wasn't enough to end it, now he died the same way. A powerful punch sending his body flying once again. Unable to rise this time. For the third time in a row, he was struck down, the force of the blow rendering him motionless once again. This cycle continues again. Each death followed by rebirth, only to face the same fate once more. He began to understand that in reality there was no escape, trapped in an endless loop where death and revival were his only constants. Every time he dies, he goes back in time, reliving the same moments with no way to break the cycle. This happened thanks to the save and reset, ability that the girl gave him. He wondered if he would be stuck in this death loop for the rest of his pitiful life. He woke up for the 5th or 6th time, thinking he was going to die again. But this time he thought faster and started running, desperate to outrun his fate, and break free from the endless loop. However, even if he ran away from the bear, he still met the same tragic end as before. He died at the hands of the bear. He will die regardless of whether he dodges left or right. How many times up or down? He eventually continued to die each time. Desperately, he declared that he did not want this, and begged someone to kill him. Because if you could die, you would be freed from this pain. However, his prayers were not answered, and he woke up again. He then pondered the possibility of deleting the save and reset ability to free himself from this. At that moment, a screen displaying his abilities opened. You can interact with everything on the screen, so you should be able to remove the save and reset ability. However, something caught his attention. As soon as he touched the status window, memories rushed back into his mind. Memories of Namiya, about the assassins of Namiya and Darka, and the villagers who accused him. His anger was extremely intense, and he wondered how it could disappear so easily. As if his emotions were being erased with each reset, he concluded that that anger would obviously disappear, and then he rushed at the bear to counterattack. Knowing what the bear will do, he promptly dodged the first punch. At that moment, he realized he had moved towards the bear and grabbed it. However, if you dodge the first punch, the second punch will hit you. And so he died again. But this time, he felt happy because he avoided the first punch. He wasn't sure how many times he had died, probably more than 100 times. He memorized the bear's movements, analyzing each strike and pattern, determined to find a way to avoid the fatal blow next time, knowing that it will use its right arm first. So he bent down and moved forward. Then the bear used its left arm. He stood up and jumped up to attack. To dodge the attack, he took a step and rolled to the left, through which he moved behind the bear. However, he couldn't panic and try to run away, because the monster would catch up and kill him if he did. Concentrating on defeating it, he continued to dodge another punch. He told himself that this was the best approach he had found. After countless deaths, apparently he punched the monster straight in the face. However, his punch is quite weak, lacking the power needed to break through or defend against the bear's relentless assault. He knew he had 25 seconds to run before the bear caught up. After running for a while, he stopped and noticed chests being thrown around in the dungeon. At this moment, he heard the bear chasing him, so he continued running through areas he had never explored in his previous lives. Suddenly, the ground beneath his feet collapsed. He fell into a trap and ended up dying in a new way, caught off guard by a twist in the cycle he hadn't anticipated. This took at least 200 attempts, each death a small lesson. Yet the cycle never seemed to end, and progress felt painfully slow. After fighting the bear several more times, his movements have improved significantly. The hero can now aim at the bear's eyes, giving him 35 seconds to escape instead of 25 seconds. While running, he remembered the trap he had fallen into before. He realized this was the only path with no escape. He saw the bear approaching, unable to bear having to repeat this scene again. He decided to jump vigorously, with all his strength and determination as the wind whipped past him. He avoided all the spikes on the ground. He breathed a sigh of relief because he had narrowly escaped. Then he raised his head and laughed at the angry bear. Remember how many times you died, just so you can get past this point. He entered a small tunnel ahead. He looked ahead and saw light, shining brightly in the distance, guiding him towards something unknown. When he reached the end of the tunnel, he was extremely surprised. It's a room with a chest in the center. It appears to be a secret or rare chest. When opening the chest, he discovered there was a pearl inside. You collect this item, and he discovered that it was the wisdom crystal, which automatically activated. A long list of abilities appeared before his eyes, from S rank to C rank. Looking at this list, he was amazed at the amazing possibilities. He could choose any of those possibilities, but there were so many choices. At this moment, he started thinking about which one to choose, weighing the options carefully as doubt crept into his mind. He decided not to choose healing magic or fire magic, since both required mana production. Currently, he was lacking in mana and in swordsmanship and bow and arrow skills, so there would be no reason for him to choose them without the corresponding weapons. As expected, you should choose an S rank ability, the one that promises unmatched power and endless possibilities. In this case, acceleration can help him climb higher, but invisibility can increase his chances of survival. You're a little worried. He decided to choose invisibility. When invisibility is activated, his body was covered in a layer of this magic. He felt very excited. However, at that moment, he realized the entrance was closing. Additionally, several magic circles, pentagrams in the area began to glow. Suddenly, a series of bears similar to the first one appeared. Looking at their expressions, these bears seem unfriendly. They all started getting restless and growling. Seeing such a large number of enemies, the boy felt worried. He told himself that this was when the real trial began, or he would die. With countless bears in this treasure room, he was eventually killed by a total of 10 bears. Then he started again, and he realized he was back at the original checkpoint, the familiar surroundings making him wonder if he had truly moved forward at all. Even so, he still managed to reach the treasure room again. After opening the chest, a list of skills appeared before his eyes. He was worried about which skill to choose, and he decided to use acceleration. He rushed towards the bears, but thanks to his fast speed, he avoided their attacks. This is because he can see the bears move as if in slow motion after 200 deaths. In the end, he acquired the ability Stealth, but it had no effect on these bears, so he decided to choose Accelerate. Once again, he charged at a bear. He threw a precise punch. He was so happy that he had finally succeeded. However, when he looked at his hand, he noticed it was completely broken. He was distracted by this. All the bears took the opportunity to attack him. While he was being beaten, he thought that his body was still too weak to handle the strength of the acceleration. After being defeated by the 10 bears again, he woke up looking ahead. He saw the same bear from before, and found myself here again. However, he has more experience now. If accelerating helps him dodge the bear's attacks, then he will have many opportunities to attack. He decided to choose the Speed Up ability again, and try to complete the room, but he was distracted and died again. The total number of deaths has reached about 225. When he reached the treasure room, he realized that it was really difficult to get into, and each time he got used to it, he added to his list of deaths. After choosing one of the possibilities, monsters appear, and they rush towards him. He used the acceleration skill to participate in combat, his movements blurring with speed as he surged forward, every strike landing with precision, leaving his enemies unable to react in time. But he immediately realized it. 3 bears were attacking him simultaneously. While he wondered why it worked this way, currently the number of attempts is about 300. The bears had killed him many times since he chose to speed up and continue fighting. He then managed to use his speed to blind them. They endured the pain and attacked him again. Over time, Kiska moved behind them and began strangling each bear. However, he was afraid to admit one thing. Deep down, he wasn't sure if he was truly ready for what lay ahead, the weight of uncertainty gnawing at his confidence. Despite the possibility of an S rating, he still couldn't defeat these bears. Even though you have the ability to accelerate, you can't win against them either. And that was the conclusion he came to after 300 deaths lying motionless on the ground. He understood that he had to start again from the beginning. Sometime later, he was again in the treasure room, the familiar sight of glittering gold and ancient artifacts surrounding him. But this time it felt different. He wasn't sure if it was luck or fate that had brought him back. Kiska says choosing an ability isn't easy, because if he died, he would have to face the first bear again. And if he did nothing, he would die too. Faced with his inevitable fate, he concludes that there is no way out. Then he remembered Namiya. But in your memory, Darga also appears to be the one who killed her. Remembering everything he had experienced in his first life, Kiska's expression changed. He declared that he hated this man, and if it weren't for that hatred, he would have given up a long time ago. After you choose one of the possibilities, he declared that he would escape this terrible dungeon and take revenge himself. After you choose the ability, bears appeared before him. He is not afraid of death. Kiska rushed at them, with martial arts abilities, physical enhancement, and body improvement, which he uses in turn. He continued to find ways to defeat the bears. Kiska died many times until the number of deaths reached 420. In one go, he is standing on the back of a bear, and he thought that the ability to strengthen muscles was definitely the best ability. Suddenly, the bear became crazy, its eyes wild with fury as it charged, thrashing and roaring uncontrollably, tearing through everything in its path with reckless abandon. Kiska immediately let go. Kiska performed a backflip, and he rushed towards the other bear. He declared that this was his goal. He kicked it hard in the head. The monster fell to the ground unconscious. The monster's death is confirmed, and skill points are accumulated. The boy smiled, feeling happy. Because this was the first bear he killed, a surge of guilt and unease washed over him, as if the beast's vengeful spirit had awakened, seeking retribution for its untimely end. He currently has 12 available points. The first ability is Save and Reset, and the second ability is Muscle Strengthening. To upgrade the second ability, you need 10 points. Kiska knew what she had to do. He decided to upgrade Muscle Enhancement to level 2. He thought that if he continued to kill bears and upgrade his strength, one day he would be able to defeat them all and continue to improve his Muscle Enhancement ability. You need 100 points to upgrade your abilities. Realizing this, the boy understood that each bear he destroyed would bring 12 points, so you will need to kill a lot of bears to get 100 points. Feeling discouraged, he declared that this was actually impossible, and if you can't upgrade, well, you can't defeat them all. Time passed and he died 510 times. In despair, he wondered why he had to go through this. It's all Darga's fault, the one responsible for everything that went wrong, leaving chaos in his wake, and because of him, he was trapped in this terrible dungeon, unintentionally. The boy activated the skill Provocation, his voice filled with confidence as he prepared to draw attention and challenge his opponents head-on. The boy said to himself that he did not know how to use this skill and would soon die again, having to prepare again from the beginning. He turned back to look. He noticed the bears coming towards him. He analyzed the situation. He understood that the only thing he could do was to provoke his opponent. He hesitated to call them idiots. Then he wondered if this was how the skill worked. At that time, a bear rushed into the wall, its massive body crashing with a thunderous impact, sending tremors through the ground. He looked at another bear. You call it ugly. The bear was angered. The offended bear attacked his fellow bear. These actions surprised the boy. When he saw two bears being defeated in front of him, a sense of awe and disbelief washed over him. Realizing just how fierce the battle had been and how close they had come to victory, the boy started laughing. Then the boy laughed like a crazy person, his laughter echoing through the air, wild and unhinged, as if the chaos around him had unlocked something dark within him. He wondered if all his efforts were in vain, despite the main character being filled with rage. So he decided that from now on, he would use this skill to kill all of them. The bears surrounded him, provoking his opponents. He told them to come closer and called them little fish, his tone dripping with arrogance as he mocked their strength, confident that they were no match for him. All the bears started fighting each other. Meanwhile, he continued to insult them, calling them stupid and idiots, his words sharp and relentless as he taunted them without mercy. Sometime later, almost all of them were destroyed, their broken remains scattered across the ground, a testament to the sheer force unleashed upon them. He noticed that the remaining two bears were a bit angry. He told them to attack at the same time, calling them slow. They obey orders. They rushed at him, and he dodged in time. Finally, the two bears bumped into each other. Because armored bears are strong, their thick, reinforced hides made them nearly invincible. Capable of withstanding even the fiercest of attacks, both bears died with a single blow. The boy was covered in blood. He raised his arms high and celebrated. He said he did it. The number of deaths was 510, and that was how he completed the armored bear room. Sometime later, when you entered another area of the dungeon, the boy is running. After he passed the room of 10 armored bears, a headless fire horse appeared at the exit. The boy was scared. The boy promptly escaped and thought he had entered a new level. But it's still not enough. This monster has already killed him 10 times when the boy went out to deal with the bear-headed horse. But the good news is that the respawn point has been updated to the treasure room. He thought that just not having to deal with those bears anymore would make things easier. After escaping from the empty-headed horse, he began to wander around the dungeon. And he realized this was a place he had never been to before. Ahead, he saw a room. Inside that mysterious room, there are teleport rings. He saw 3 rings in the room. He wondered if he would have to choose one of them. You're worried. Then he told himself there was no need to worry about it. He quickly chose the circle in the middle. He smiled. He thought that if he regretted it, he could just die and come back. A moment later, he was transported to another area in the dungeon. He looked around. He wondered if there was any place here, but for now, he decided to keep going. While wandering in the dungeon, he accidentally discovered a room, hidden behind a stone wall that seemed to blend seamlessly with its surroundings, the faint glow from within beckoning him to step forward and uncover its secrets. When he got closer, he realized what it was. As a woman, who gave him the ability to come back to life. She seems trapped in a strange laboratory. He approached. Kiska realized it was her. He wondered if she was being held captive. You're scared. He reached towards the box containing her. As soon as his fingers touched it, glass shattered in panic. He wondered if he could really break the glass with just one touch. Right away, the girl fell to the ground. He was worried about the girl and he asked her if she was okay. Confused girl. The girl stood up and replied that she was fine. With a fake smile, she asked if he was the one who freed her. But he only asked if she was the one who gave him this ability, his voice steady but tinged with curiosity, waiting for her answer as the weight of the question hung in the air. The girl introduced herself, saying her name was Ageha Tsubaki, a heroine who was once sealed in this place. The girl asked his name, and he replied that his name was Kiska. The girl said it was a good name, a hint of approval in her voice as she nodded, her eyes softening for a moment before returning to their usual sharp focus. Then she asked him to come closer. And when you do, she suddenly kissed him without any warning. You were so surprised. Kiska asks why she did that. The girl smiled and replied that she wanted to thank him and asked if he didn't like it. He was embarrassed and said that he didn't say he didn't like it, but he was completely confused. He wondered what this girl wanted. She continued to approach and asked if he wanted to leave the dungeon. He replied that he wanted to escape from this place. Seeing that, she smiled, and she grabbed his wrist. She declared that he had to follow her because she would take him out. They then faced the headless horse. The girl beat it without any trouble. Seeing this, Kiska thought she was amazing. The girl asked him if she was strong. In response, the hero commented that she was very strong, her voice calm yet filled with respect for the beast's immense power and resilience. The girl used a type of magic with her left hand, her fingers weaving through the air as glowing symbols appeared, ready to unleash her formidable spell. Kiska curiously asked what she had just done. The girl answered that it was a skill called Item Box, which allowed her to store anything. Kiska excitedly remembered that this skill might already be in the skill chest. After picking up the magic stone, she said they must continue. Kiska asks where they are going. The girl replied that they were heading to the mid-boss room in the dungeon. Kiska asks if they have to fight that boss. The girl explains that if they don't defeat this monster, they won't be able to leave. She explains that if he doesn't free her, she will remain trapped much longer. Her voice tinged with desperation as the weight of her situation became clear. Because of the hero's good deed, Ageha said that she would fight for him. Hearing that, Kiska felt a little moved. He claims he survived thanks to her, so it must have been a quid pro quo. When they opened the door, the girl commented that maybe that was true. This is the dungeon boss she mentioned, an S-class monster called Golem. Kiska is so impressed with monsters. Kiska commented that it was huge, maybe 10 meters tall. At that moment, the monster began to roar. The girl told Kiska to stand behind her, and she reassured him that he would be fine. She rushed forward and promised to protect him. She slashed her sword at the monster, but it was able to avoid the attack and prepare to attack the girl again. Surprisingly, Ageha was very flexible and was able to dodge the attack in time. Kiska observed the match. Kiska thinks she is very strong, because she had not backed down from this golem. He told himself that she could win. However, suddenly the girl tripped over a stone. The monster's punch rushed close to her face, and when she was hit, she was thrown away, her body crashing against the ground with a harsh thud, leaving her momentarily stunned and struggling to regain her composure. At this time, the girl was somewhat stunned as the monster was about to finish her off. Kiska intervenes using the taunt skill, calling the boss a fool and saying it's right here. Hearing that, the heroine was also worried and told Kiska not to do that. The golem monster got angrier. The monster was about to punch the boy in the face, punch hard enough to break the wall. Seeing this, the heroine could not believe her eyes. She stood stunned, her voice trembling. She began calling Kiska's name. She burst into tears. She said, "I told you I will protect you from the ruins of the wall." Kiska started laughing and said that, unfortunately, he is very good at dodging and simply avoiding the bear's attack. The girl smiles and sheds tears, revealing that Kiska is still alive. Then he called out to her, pointing out that the monster's arm was stuck. Understand orders. The girl rushed forward to end it, her movement swift and decisive. Her eyes locked on the target as she prepared to strike the final blow with unrelenting force. Ageha turned towards the boss. She uses swordsmanship techniques. With that single attack, she slashes the boss in half. At that moment, it became clear that Heroine X was indeed very strong. Her every move radiating power and confidence, effortlessly overwhelming her opponents with ease. After witnessing this terrifying display of power, Kiska felt a bit embarrassed, but at the same time, very happy. Ageha then ran towards him, calling his name, and she said they did. Realizing this, Kiska sees that they have defeated the golem boss, and looking at the situation, everything will be okay in the end. As if the pieces were finally falling into place, and the chaos that had once consumed them was slowly starting to settle. At least that's what he thought at the time. After defeating the golem, they passed through a secret passage and continued deeper into the prison. At this moment, after the shock, the girl called Kiska. Ageha informed Kiska that there was a safe place nearby. After going through the secret passage, they discovered a strange room. The room is like a fully furnished space or bedroom. Ageha commented that perhaps vampires had discovered this place. Kiska was frightened. He asked if vampires really existed here. Ageha explains that the vampires are demons who created this dungeon and turned it into their fortress. Hearing that, Kiska asked if she was sure it was safe here and if the vampires would be angry because they were here. Ageha replied that they would probably be safe in bed. She smiled and said she was tired and they should rest. Kiska thought the opposite. He thought this was a very bad idea, but because he trusted Ageha, he thought everything would be okay. The girl called him back. She asked him to come a little closer. This request left Kiska completely confused. Ageha then explained that she wanted to talk to him. At this time, both sat down on the bed. To break the silence, Kiska asked Ageha if she found him disgusting. The girl didn't understand what Kiska said, so she asked him why he thought that. He replied that it was because of his gray hair. A moment of surprise appeared on the girl's face. She explained that to her, that silver hair looked very beautiful, and she found it so gentle. She said there was something incredibly cute about Kiska's silver hair. This made him feel a bit awkward. This hair is characteristic of the species he hates, so every time anyone sees his silver hair, they look at him with contempt. Suddenly, he remembered Namiya, who had truly admired his silver hair as it was. Actually, Namiya was the first person to compliment his hair, and Ageha was the second. She looked up and said that she definitely thought so because she was from another world. This information surprised Kiska, and he wondered, did she really say she came from another world? Although Kiska had never heard of this, Ageha asked if he believed her. However, Kiska replied that it wasn't that he didn't believe her, but that he believed her. Hearing that, she just smiled. Then she rested her head on his shoulder. She said that she knew he would say that. Kiska smiled and thought that perhaps the strange feeling of distance between them was because she was from another world. However, at this moment, his stomach growled loudly, breaking the silent atmosphere. Ageha asked, "Are you hungry?" Kiska replied, "I haven't eaten anything decent since entering the dungeon." Suddenly, Ageha said, "I have headless horse meat in my item box." She smiled and continued saying, "I'll try my cooking skills." As Ageha prepared Kiska's meal, Kiska patiently waited for dinner. A while later, Ageha finished the dish and apologized for the delay. The food she brought looked very delicious. She suggested Kiska try it. Kiska was curious, and he decided to try a spoonful. After you taste it, he was very surprised and said it was really delicious. This made Ageha extremely happy. In dungeons, food is rare and Kiska usually can't do anything complicated. However, it seemed that Ageha's item box had some spices, and she used them to create this wonderful dish. Kiska was very touched, and he thought that since entering the dungeon, this was the first time he had eaten such a delicious dish like this. Kiska wondered how the food could be so delicious. Seeing that he looked strange, Ageha was surprised and asked if he was crying and if she added too much spice to the dish. He felt embarrassed. Kiska replied that it was just a little. After dinner, Kiska said she felt tired and was going to sleep. He looked around. He realized there was only one bed in the room. He immediately told Ageha that he would sleep on the sofa and she could use the bed while Ageha washed the dishes. However, Ageha said there was no need to worry. She laughed and said they could sleep in the same bed. This statement made Kiska extremely confused and hastily refused. He thought that wasn't a good idea. That evening, they both slept separately, Ageha on the bed and Kiska on the sofa. Even though they were tired, the two still couldn't sleep. Their minds were still full of thoughts and worries. Kiska thinks that with Ageha's help, maybe he can escape this dungeon. He admits that it's a shame to only be able to rely on a woman's strength, because his strength is nothing compared to hers. While thinking about what he should do, the former heroine approached him with a suspicious smile. She told the hero that she wanted to have physical relations with him. This scene shocked Kiska, and he asked her what she was doing. The girl did not answer. Ageha just kept quiet and kissed Kiska. She grabbed his hand, called his name, and told him to touch her, her voice soft yet urgent. As if the moment held a deeper meaning that he couldn't fully grasp, Ageha asked him if his heart was beating fast. She looked straight into his eyes. She said she loved him. She began repeating this statement over and over again. Kiska panicked and said that he had done nothing to make her love him. This left Ageha completely confused. She explains that he saved her, her voice soft yet filled with gratitude as she looked at him. Realizing the danger he had risked to protect her, she revealed that she had been imprisoned in a deep prison for hundreds of years, waiting alone in the hope that a prince would come to her rescue. Every time I meet someone in prison, she both gave them abilities. At this moment, the boy realized that the heroine had given him the ability to save her. Continuing to explain, she said that it was useless because people with that ability would be very enthusiastic, but could only go so far and then fail. In other words, Kiska was the only one who could get close to her. She came closer to his face, said that she was always waiting for him, and called him her Prince Charming. Hearing this, Kiska was speechless. She mustered all her courage. Ageha started to undress. However, Kiska asked her to wait and stop, her tone firm yet calm, as if sensing something was amiss and needing a moment to assess the situation. He explained that he couldn't do this to her. She hesitantly asked why. Kiska explains that he is dating someone else. The old hero said she understood but still moved closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. She lay on top of him and explained that it didn't matter. With haunted eyes, she said that she would be happy even if it was the second person as long as he loved her. After speaking, she kissed him. Haunted by everything that has happened in his life, Kiska begins to remember all the bad things that happened to Namiya. When the old heroine kissed him, his voice began to tremble. Kiska panicked. He pushed Ageha away. But he quickly realized what he had just done. a wave of regret washing over him as the gravity of his actions became painfully clear. With a trembling voice, he apologized and asked if she was okay. Kiska felt like a disgusting existence, and Ageha's strong actions remind him of the people who hurt Namiya. The girl was a little embarrassed and apologized. She said that perhaps she was too hasty. Then she went back to bed and lay down to sleep. Kiska felt a little regretful. Kiska recalls that he pushed her away accidentally. In his mind, he admitted that he should have acted more wisely. Even though he felt uncomfortable, he also realized that escaping the dungeon without help was very difficult. As he prepared to sleep, he thought he had to find a way to convince her to change her decision tomorrow. A while later, he woke up. He sat up, feeling heavy, and looked to the side. At that moment, he realized Ageha was right in front of him, floating like a supernatural spirit. Seeing this scene, he began to tremble and sweat nervously. In fact, she's hanging, and you know what that means. Feeling dizzy when seeing this scene, he started to feel nauseous and his body trembled. He wondered if this was his fault. His whole body trembled from head to toe. The fisherman clutched his head, and he wondered if this had happened because he had rejected Ageha. While struggling with these thoughts, he sighed. He said he couldn't understand what was going on. In desperation, he started to run away. He said it wasn't his fault. Not knowing what to do, he walked down the same path as before, his footsteps heavy with uncertainty, each step echoing his inner turmoil. As he passed, he insisted that this was really just an accident. When exiting the path, he was discovered by the headless horses, which were on fire. One of them rushed at him, and the headless horse kicked him in the back. Close to death, he thought that he had come this far thanks to Ageha, and now she will be easily killed. A while later, he woke up, and he realized that he reset after a bear attack. Kiska is worried. He recalls that Ageha died because of his fault. When he left the room, he wondered what he should do. He wondered if he should accept her love or not. People are full of contradictions. He understands that she is no longer alive, while Ageha is still alive because he went back in time. He hurriedly walked to the glass, touched it, and declared that this time he would accept her love, like before. With just a light touch, the glass shattered. He looked at the girl lying motionless on the floor, surprised. In his heart, he resolved that this time he would save her. Confused, the girl asked him who his name was. He smiled and answered that his name was Kiska. She observed the main character. She said she had never heard his name before, but he felt like there was something wrong with him, an unsettling sense of unease gnawing at him, as if something deep inside had shifted without him realizing it. Kiska is confused. The main character wonders what is going on, and he realized that the girl in front of him was not like Ageha. He even asked if it was really her. The girl replied that yes, it was her. With a serious expression, she said she had never heard that before. At this point, the main character wonders if he should tell her that he knows her from another timeline, and she was the one who gave him the ability to save and restart. He began to wonder if he should tell her, and also wondered about what happened the last time he acted against her. With a worried tone, Kiska said that she had gone too far, and that he was not her enemy. But immediately, the girl started strangling him. She had a hysterical look on her face, her hand clutching his neck. She asked if this was the reason why she felt something was wrong with him. He tried to make her stop, but wasn't strong enough. Completely changing her attitude, Ageha looked at him and told him to listen carefully. "Don't make the mistake of thinking things will go back to the way they were," she explains. When he died, she said that even in death, his actions were still imprinted on his soul. Kiska panicked. He started asking who she was. With a sadistic smile, she explained that she wouldn't tell a villain like him who she really was. Kiska then begged to speak to Ageha immediately. But the old hero replied that she did not want to. And Ageha did not want to talk to him either. Looking at him with cold eyes, she began to give advice. She said that he should not get involved with Ageha anymore. After speaking, she finished by breaking his neck. After you died in such a tragic way, he woke up at the checkpoint again. He was worried, and he started telling himself that he couldn't understand what was going on. He wondered what had just happened, and whether it was some kind of second personality. Then he remembered the girl's advice. Never get involved with Ageha again. He understood that if he saw her again, he would die, and if that happened, it would be the end for him. Therefore, he decided not to see her again and not to break her seal. However, he realized that it would be difficult to complete the dungeon challenge without Ageha's help. In this situation, you will have to find another way to get through. Time to face the attack from the pentagram star. Kiska remembered entering the middle gate before and decided to try entering the left gate this time. As he did so, he felt himself being transported to another location, the world around him warping and twisting as if reality itself was unraveling. Looking around, he realized there was only one path, just like where Ageha used to live. Kiska begins to explore the new area. Her senses alert as she cautiously surveys her surroundings. feeling the strange energy in the air and the unfamiliar terrain beneath her feet. And then he came across a girl sitting alone. The girl calmly drank tea. Seeing this scene, he was extremely surprised. The girl opened her eyes and looked at him, and she said that this was really unusual. She couldn't believe that someone could get into this place. However, the main character was still in a state of shock, unable to believe that there was a girl drinking tea calmly in this terrible dungeon. He began to wonder who this girl was and what she was doing here. At that moment, the girl interrupted Kiska's thoughts by asking him what he wanted and if he needed anything from her. Kiska was confused. He explained that he was trying to find a way out of this dungeon. The girl smiled and said she understood. Suddenly, she said that it was a great disrespect. This made him feel confused. She explains that she is the great ancestor of the vampire race. With a sadistic look in her eyes, she said that she doubted he understood what that meant, since he didn't look like a scholar. Using her sharp nails, she cut her arm. Then she approaches the main character and deals a fatal blow. He started screaming in pain, falling to the ground. He only heard the girl say that he had to pay with his life. The last thing he saw before he died was the sadistic smile of the crazy girl. After this death, he woke up again at the checkpoint in the bear room. He realized he had been killed again. Kiska was horrified. He told himself that this prison was full of crazy people. Kiska remembered what Ageha once said, some monsters have turned these dungeons into fortresses. He realized it was one of those monsters that killed him. And that was a vampire ancestor named Judith. This girl dresses elegantly like a lady. The main character thinks that he is no match for such a dangerous person who can attack suddenly. He left the bear room. He ran and thought about what to do next. He told himself that there was only one choice left. The third circle, which he hasn't tried yet. Standing before this new circle, he thought that this was definitely the right choice. After entering the circle, he was transferred to a third location, the scenery shifting once again, leaving him disoriented as he tried to make sense of the new, mysterious environment around him. Going and looking around, he noticed that this place was similar to the previous corridors, and he hoped there was no danger ahead. At that moment, he saw a sword at the end of the hallway. As he got closer, he realized it was a sword. And even though he felt it looked suspicious, he still decided to give it a try. Because you came here unarmed, and if the sword is strong, it might help you escape. He took the sword, its weight solid in his hand, the cold steel a stark contrast to the warmth of his grip as he prepared for whatever lay ahead. But as soon as he did so, he felt something strange. Continuously, he was hit with a strong electric shock. As he held the sword, he felt intense pain spread throughout his body. You said you couldn't open the hand that was holding the sword tightly, and the pain lasted for several minutes. The pain is so intense that over time, he gradually lost consciousness. A while later, he woke up. He stood up and realized he was still alive. The surge of relief quickly followed by disbelief, as if he had narrowly escaped death and was now caught between two worlds. However, when he looked to the side, he saw that the sword had regenerated his arm. It seemed to have merged with the arm as if in some form of symbiosis. You wonder what this is? As his hand seemed to have merged with the sword, when you move your arm, he realized the sword was very heavy. He panicked. He wondered what to do about this. And there's no other choice. Kiska continued walking through the dungeon's corridors, his sword still firmly attached to his arm. He tried to walk but could not lift the arm holding the sword because of its weight. Suddenly he saw the head of a monster. That terrifying monster was an A-rank human wolf. When a target is detected, the wolf began to howl. He was sweating, worried, and thinking that this was impossible, he would die again. But suddenly the sword pulled him towards the monster. Its blade vibrating with a dark energy, as if it had a mind of its own, forcing him forward against his will. They attacked the werewolves with many fatal blows, each strike landing with precision and power, weakening the creatures with every moment. In just a few seconds, the wolf was completely defeated. Moving forward, Kiska wondered what had just happened. It felt like the sword had a life of its own, because it moved automatically without his control. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva, still dazed from the shock. He reassured himself that it was okay anyway. He smiled and said that he would use anything to escape this dungeon, even a scary and disgusting sword. Sometime later, he defeated several Ankaya wolves, their fierce howls echoing through the air as each one fell before him, his blade cutting through them with relentless precision and skill. As he continued walking through the dungeon, he thought this black sword was truly powerful, and with it, he could defeat any enemy along the way. Along the way, he came across a gate. Given the current situation, he thought this was definitely the middle boss room. He remembered the golem from last time when he was with Ageha, and wondered if it would be the same this time. Without hesitation, he entered the room. This time, the monster is an S-class creature named Griffin. Kiska worried he realized this was indeed the middle boss, and it looked very powerful. Without any hesitation, the S-class monster rushed at him. Kiska was able to dodge and narrowly escaped death thanks to the sword's ability. After avoiding it, he struck a confident, heroic pose, and he declared that now, with this black sword, you can fight. Griffin rushed forward again. But this time, he used the sword for defense. He blocked many of the monster's attacks. He dodged again. He understood that the only thing he could do now was move forward. He decided not to interfere with the movement of the black sword. At that time, he simply stood waiting for the S-class monster to approach. His expression calm and unflinching, as if he were ready to face the terrifying beast head-on. And then the sword delivered a fatal blow to Griffin. He declared that, after all, he would probably win after defeating the boss. When the boss is defeated, he started smiling, a cold, confident grin spreading across his face, as if he welcomed the challenge that awaited him. A small door opened, and he remembered this was exactly what happened to the golem when it was defeated. When he walked through this door, he declared that he would use this sword to escape the dungeon in a short time. Time passes, and he seemed very tired, as the sword was slowly consuming his body. He wondered if the sword had gotten a little bigger as he continued walking through the hallways, the weight of it growing ever so slightly with each step, as if it was reacting to something unseen. Suddenly he saw someone ahead, their figure barely visible in the dim light, standing still as if waiting for him to approach. It was Vampire Judith, who commented that it looked like he had grown up quite a bit. He was very surprised. He asked why she was here. They stood facing each other, staring at each other in the hallway, both looking scared. You asked her what she wanted, while the girl laughed and asked if his body was still awake. Judith says that if you ask her, you will know what will happen, and the answer is clear. With a sadistic smile, she declared that this was his death. She has a plan to control the parasitic sword attached to his arm. He said, not understanding what she was talking about the parasitic sword. The girl explains that the sword he is using is the Puppet Master, a parasitic sword. She further explains that it grows by parasitizing humans and consuming monsters, making it an extremely dangerous item. She thought it would be okay to leave him alone, since this dungeon was rarely visited by anyone. The boy worriedly asked if she would kill him, and she answered yes. She tore off her own arm while she praised the boy, saying that he understood very quickly. Kiska was shocked as he watched the girl tear off her own arm, and he wondered what she would do. Judith held her severed arm, and the girl continued to smile without showing any pain. With her own blood, she created another arm and a sword. She then told him to do her a favor by dying. Now she didn't give him a chance to react. The girl rushes at the main character. However, he still managed to defend with the parasitic sword, its dark energy surging to life as it absorbed the blows, creating a protective shield around him. The vampire was angry. She insisted that he die. The two continued to duel, while the young man swore that he would not lose. Quickly, the vampire created a distance between them. She smiled and said that in the end, this was not simple. When the parasitic sword became excited to this extent, the hero wonders if this is his chance. Suddenly, the vampire threw the sword into the air, and the vampire uses a move called Cruel Blood Rain. Suddenly, the sword shattered. A series of fragments flew towards the hero, causing him to be hit by many sword fragments. Judith looked at the completely defeated protagonist. Judith admitted that she did not want to use this move because it left her unable to use her left arm for a while. But she had no other choice, her options dwindling as the situation grew more desperate, forcing her to make a decision she never wanted to face. When he woke up, the boy realized he had been reset again. Frustrated, he wondered if this was the right choice. Reflects that he understands the significant risks and decided to put the situation into context. Using the first transport circle, he intended to find the seal Dageha, and if he breaks the seal, he will be instantly killed by her. However, by using the second circle, he will be killed by the vampire without him being able to do anything about it. Using the third circle, he obtained the parasitic sword, and he ventured deeper into the dungeon. But eventually, the vampire will appear and kill him again. He was worried. He thought that if he wanted to live as long as possible, he would have to choose the third option. So his goal becomes to defeat the vampire Judith with the help of the cursed sword and overcome the dungeon. But even knowing this, he still didn't know what to do to achieve that result. He remembered what the vampire had said about the sword, that it parasitized the user, devoured demons, and was an extremely dangerous object. When he left the room, he realized that he would have to kill enough demons to push the sword to its limits. Only then will he be able to defeat Judith. The dungeon warns that it is a race against time, the eerie message echoing through the walls just before Judith appears, her presence signaling that the countdown had truly begun. He was out of breath after a long run. He realized that there were only about 5 hours left before she appeared again. Faced with a transition loop, he remembered the last time he went through a magic circle, Judith was waiting. And as soon as he entered the ring, he was teleported. He hoped she wouldn't be there this time. Looking towards the end of the hallway, he saw that she was no longer in her old position. He smiled. He told himself that if so, he would continue moving forward. However, when he turned aside, he noticed something strange. It was a group of werewolves gathering. At that moment, the monsters noticed his presence and began to pay attention. He started smiling and thanked them. Then he rushed towards the monsters. He declared that he would destroy them all. Meanwhile, Judith was calmly walking through the hallways. Upon finding dead wolves on the ground, she commented that someone had obviously fed the hero quite a bit. She also comments that the puppeteer has matured considerably, and this time it will be difficult to defeat him. However, as she observed him, she discovered something strange. Half of Kiska's body was consumed by the parasitic sword. The boy then asked who was speaking, and the vampire replied smiling. It seemed his body's original consciousness had disappeared. Still confused, the hero asked what she was talking about, but the vampire simply tore his arm off. And she says that doesn't change the fact that she's going to kill him. Now the vampire smiled and she added that she would help him by ending his life. A moment later, the main character is again at the previous checkpoint. He was killed by a vampire. Terrified, the boy told himself that he could not defeat Judith, even with the puppet sword in his hand. However, he did not give up and tried again and again, sometimes almost winning. However, during those times, the sword completely took over his consciousness. Mentally broken, the boy said there was no reason to leave the dungeon in this state, and that all 3 paths he chose led to the same result. Everyone lost control. Suddenly, the main character comes up with an idea. He remembered that he needed to try something determined. He said that even though it didn't work before, now, after dying so many times, he has to try again. He declared that there was no place for Cordis before death. In the Pentagon room, he chose one of the circles. He said it was a slim chance. Sometime later, he was confronted by the vampire Judith, who commented that this was a rare thing. Holding the cup of tea, the girl said she didn't know an intruder had come in and asked what he wanted. At that moment, he remembered the last time when she had accused him of being disrespectful, and in the end, she killed him. Faced with this, he decided to completely change his approach. He knelt before her. He calls her the great ancient vampire Judith Sama. He realized he needed to act more respectfully. This surprised the vampire. He knelt down. Kiska politely asked the vampire if she would accept him as a disciple. Seeing that, the girl seemed a bit depressed, her shoulders slumping as a hint of sorrow crossed her face, as if the sight brought back painful memories. However, in less than a second, her expression completely changed into a terrifying smile. She commented that what he just said was really interesting. Kiska was surprised. The hero realized this was the best decision and that he could now have a way to survive. However, Judith asked what benefit she would receive by accepting him as a disciple. At that moment, Kiska struggled to think of what to say. He was excited. He explained that if he became her disciple, he would be her right hand and do everything according to her requests. However, vampires find this boring, their eyes glinting with disinterest as they watch the scene unfold, clearly unimpressed by the struggle before them. She said it was disgusting and asked him to die quickly. She dealt a fatal blow to him. Kiska found herself dead again. But instead of being sad, he felt excited because it was really worth it. And maybe this is the right path. He understood that to conquer this dungeon, he needed to be stronger than he was now. To achieve that goal, he decided to become Judith's student. After all, she's a compassionate vampire, not some monster who can't talk. At that moment, Kiska realized that to become her disciple, he had to consider the benefits he could bring. He understood that if he could provide something valuable to her, he might have a chance to become her student. Sometime later, Kiska once again knelt before the vampire. Curious as the vampire was, she asked what he would get out of this arrangement. Kiska then says that Judith must have been in the dungeon for a long time, and confidently suggests that she must have felt lonely. He explained that he could be someone she could talk to. However, the vampire explains that actually, feeling lonely is not such a bad thing. At that moment, she was about to grab his arm. This made the boy panic and despair. He begged her to wait a moment, saying he had more to offer. When she stopped, he felt relieved to still be alive. He went on to explain that even though he didn't look like it, he had gone through years of hard training and had absolute confidence in his strength. He smiled and explained that he could handle all the heavy work, especially when building a new hideout. She lifted a heavy table with one hand, and she pointed out that in terms of strength, she believed she was far superior to him. Her tone laced with arrogance as she challenged him with a confident smirk. Kiska remained on her knees. He admitted that she was right. Bored, the vampire asked him if he had anything else to say, her voice dripping with impatience as she regarded him with a cold, dismissive gaze. While looking at her, the protagonist thought about what he could suggest to Judith, but he couldn't think of anything. His body trembled. He waited for death, but suddenly he stood up. He revealed to the girl that he actually just wanted to survive and leave this dungeon. He explains that he was born in the city of Katarov, where this dungeon is located, and has been hunted all his life. He also said that the only woman he loved was killed by evil people. His body trembled. He said he was blamed for her death and exiled to this dungeon. Not caring about that sad story, Judith asked what it had to do with her, looking at him with sharp eyes. The main character declares that he wants revenge on the entire village. He revealed that he wanted to torture and kill them in the most horrifying ways possible, and make sure they all die. He concluded by telling the vampire that what he could offer her was in fact a spectacular massacre. Hearing that, the girl was surprised, but then she quickly smiled, blushing sadly. The vampire said that sounded very interesting. Her tone mocking yet curious, as if she were intrigued by the challenge despite her apparent indifference. And she admitted that she was starting to feel curious about what would happen. This makes the main character very happy, but she interrupted him, saying that it was too early to celebrate. Looking down the hallway, she explained that if he could pass a trial, he would be allowed to become her disciple. She asked if he used the automatic teleportation loop to get to the dungeon, and he confirmed that he did. Judith explains that this dungeon has something special. Once someone enters the automatic teleportation loop, they cannot go back down the same path. After a while, they came to a dead end, and Kiska recognized this as the room where he had been transported to. At that moment, the girl pressed a hidden brick. She explains that with just one secret trick, alternative routes may be chosen. Seeing that, Kiska was surprised because he didn't know that there was a hidden passage here. Once again, they reached another dead end, and she pressed a hidden mechanism again. A door opened, and Kiska realizes this is the robot's sword room. The walls lined with intricate mechanisms and the faint hum of machinery filling the air, signaling that something far more dangerous awaited. Judith explains that this sword has an unpleasant property, and she always wanted to get rid of it, but couldn't touch it because it was a parasite. Kiska was worried. He asked her what she wanted him to do. The vampire responded and said that she wanted him to defeat the sword's parasite and take control of it. If you can do that, you will pass the test. In amazement, Kiska asked if he could do it, and the vampire said that out of 10 people who tried, 9 people failed. However, she also explained that he had no other choice. If you refuse, you will die. Trembling with fear, the protagonist accepts the offer, and Judith then explained how to do it properly. He had to grasp the tip of the sword, not the hilt, and pull it out only once. He was frightened. The main character grabbed the sword by the blade. His body trembled from the weight of the sword. He asked the vampire what to do next, and she replied that he had to swallow it. She explains he needs to put the tip of the sword in his mouth and look up, pushing it all the way down his throat. The hero thinks that if he doesn't, she will kill him. At that time, he followed the vampire's orders. As he swallowed the puppet sword, he wondered if he would die. Suddenly, he woke up in a strange reality that seemed to belong to the sword's territory. The energy of the sword. When I saw you, it asked him if he wanted to be its owner. Terrified, he still wondered what the thing in front of him was, and it answered that it was the puppet sword's main body. Kiska understood that this was the sword's true form and wondered where she was. The sword replied that it believed this was the deepest part within it. Kiska called the puppet sword. You said you needed its power. Without any objection, the soul of the sword puppet agreed. Kiska was surprised. He asked if it was really that easy. The soul replied simply that it was an interesting answer. It explains that he was the one who initiated this. Kiska was surprised that the hero said he thought it would refuse, but it says the opposite. It revealed that there was something nostalgic in his soul that made it believe that he could move on. At that moment, it turned its back on him, its movement slow and deliberate, as if toying with him, unaware of the storm that was about to unfold. Moments later, Kiska wakes up, and the puppet sword's voice calls him Master, saying it's nice to laugh. The vampire commented that she didn't think he could actually survive. In this case, the tangled circuits were successfully controlled. Judith then told him that he had passed the test and that she now had the pleasure of serving him. Kiskia knelt down on the ground. He said that he was under her command. And from then on, he became a disciple of the vampire Judith. From that day on, a strange life began beside her. He succeeded in becoming Judith's disciple and spent his nights in the room where he and Agaya had stayed in a previous life. Each base only has one bed, which is why they have to sleep in separate rooms. A moment later, the hero entered Judith's room. However, he was startled when he saw a strange set of clothes on the table. At that moment, the vampire woke up and greeted him. She commented that he arrived quite early. Kiska stammered. He bowed and wished her a good morning. At the same time, he thought to himself that she was very attractive. Judith sat on the bed, and she announced that she would begin training him as a disciple. And she asked if he was ready. Kiska replied that he was ready and would endure any trial. Then she told him to wait a moment while she changed her clothes. A while later, the two walked in the hallway, and the vampire asked him what skills he had. Kiska replied that he only had one skill, called Taunt. Hearing that, the vampire commented that this skill seemed a bit strange. Kiska was worried, and he thought to himself that he actually had two skills, Taunt and Save and Restart. But he decided to keep the second skill a secret. They stopped at a place in the hallway, and the girl activates a secret door. Kiska was surprised to discover that there really was a secret passage. And Judith explains that she has memorized the entire dungeon map after 1,000 years of living there. Kiska felt so impressed that Kiska thought to herself that it was wonderful to be able to live here for 1,000 years, and believed that he made the right choice in becoming her disciple. They open another secret cell in the dungeon. Judith explains that their current goal is to acquire some skills. She said she could modify all the treasures in the dungeon, which impressed Kiska. When opening the chest, Kiska receives a gem of intelligence automatically activating. A complete list appeared before his eyes, and the system asked him to choose a skill from the available options. Kiska realized that this was the same list he had seen before, but there were some new skills he had never seen before, like shakes and perception. He called his teacher. Kiska asks Judith which skill to choose. She explains that swordsmanship is the only skill that attracts her attention, but because the parasite is in your body, you will be able to control it as you wish. So she suggested he choose the sword skill. Listen to her words. Kiska chooses this skill, and he received notification that he had learned the sword skill. Kiska was excited. He thought that he could now freely use the sword marionette. However, the teacher called him, and she said that they needed to go to the deepest part of the dungeon to get the next skill. Hearing that, Kiska felt shocked, but the mistress did not care. The teacher said they had to go immediately. A moment later, the two walked through the corridors of the dungeon. As they walked, Kiska noticed that this was the deepest part, and that they had come here through secret passages, meeting very few enemies. However, he still felt that something was wrong. The teacher announced that they had arrived and were now standing in front of a treasure chest, just like Annie's. Kiska recognized this as a skill chest, and the teacher told him that this was a lucky challenge. She explains that the wisdom crystal in this chest allows him to only receive one skill. Each skill will be randomly selected according to rank. The teacher added that the guy's luck would now be tested. Kiska hesitated a bit. He opened the chest, telling himself that he hoped it would give him a good skill. At that time, the main character received a notification that he had acquired the attribute allocation skill. The teacher seemed confused, wondering what that meant. Judith explains that it is a rare skill, but without magical abilities, it wouldn't be too useful at the moment. The boy thought that, all in all, this was a huge failure. A bit shy, the teacher explained that all he needs to do is learn a magical skill in the future and ask him not to feel discouraged. She turned away. She told him to go back to the hideout. But at that moment, the main character asked about the boy, making the teacher curious. Kiska asks about what lies behind that door. The teacher answered that that was the room where the dungeon's boss resided, and if he defeated it, he would be able to leave the dungeon. This sentence made Kiska extremely interested. Kiska was worried. He asked if he could escape the dungeon if he defeated the boss, and the girl confirmed it. Looking at the door, Kiska thought he had finally found a way to escape this dungeon. Kiska asked the teacher if she could easily defeat the boss, but she explained that the boss here is SS rank, and she has been in this dungeon since the current boss arrived, unable to leave for the past 50 years. In other words, even she couldn't defeat the boss of this dungeon. Judith concluded that to escape, you must be stronger than her, and they will need more help to defeat the boss. She smiled and said that to achieve this, they had to go back to training the boy, knowing that only through intense preparation could he hope to survive the challenges ahead and face the dangers lurking in the shadows. Kiska was so excited he ran after her, saying they should continue later. In prison, she cut her hand, and she explains that this is how she controls the blood in her body. Looking at her hand, Kiska thought he already knew this, because she killed him in previous lives. At that moment, the boy watched as her blood turned into a knife. He realized that she could turn it into anything, depending on the amount of blood. Judith explains to the protagonist that he can also use his puppet sword in the same way, by focusing on the body with clean hands. He began to concentrate and think, his mind clearing as he focused on the task at hand, every instinct sharpening as he prepared for what was to come. Suddenly the sword appeared in his hand, and he received a notification that he had acquired the skill Use Marionette, along with a secondary skill, a black sword. Kiska was happy. He told his master that he had done it. She smiled. She said that at least now he was ready to fight. He was happy thinking that he could finally fight. But the master called his attention. Judith told Kiska that she would give him his first mission, and she said she wanted him to fight her. If he could touch her with the sword even once, he would complete the quest. With a trembling voice, he asked if it was really okay to do so, but the female vampire replied that he should imagine that she did not want to kill her student. Kiska is shy. The student said he just didn't want to hurt her. Hearing that, the female vampire became angry. She said in a low voice, "Okay, as you can see, I have the ability to heal myself." Her tone calm but tinged with a quiet confidence, revealing a power she had kept hidden. With a crazy smile, she picked up the dagger. She asked if he really thought he could hurt her. At that moment, the hero wondered if he had made Judith angry. She lunged at him and said that if he thought he could, then you should prove it, she said, her voice steady, but carrying an underlying challenge, as if daring him to show the strength he had been boasting about. He was able to avoid her attack, but he turned his back to his opponent. Once again, he was almost hit by the attack, the deadly strike grazing past him with mere inches to spare, his heart pounding as he narrowly avoided certain death. He thought that Judith seemed to really want to practice a little, but something made him feel like he had made her angry. With a threatening expression, his master said that just dodging was not enough to complete the mission. Once again, when the attack came down from above, the boy was able to block it with his cursed sword. However, the vampire's strength was on another level. She quickly threw him away. He understood that thanks to his sword-fighting skills, he could dodge. But he also knew she was an excellent warrior, able to wield a large sword with just one hand. And if he could hit her, it would be extremely impressive. Even though it's just training, if she keeps attacking like this, she can kill him while defending herself. He thought it was necessary to attack her as quickly as possible to end the match. He concluded that if necessary, he would continue to dodge until he found the time to attack. He did so, trying to stab her with his sword, but she quickly avoided it. Impressed him. He realized it was useless. If she continued to dodge like that, he wouldn't achieve his goal. At that moment, he remembered when she killed him before. She had a big sword, and thus couldn't move carelessly. However, in this reality, she is using a dagger, and she rushed at him. When he saw his master approaching, he thought if only a dagger, he might have a chance to hit her. He quickly raised his sword to counter his master's strike while thinking he was going to attack her. He assured himself that her attack would not make him retreat, so he had to counterattack with his sword. He aimed his attack precisely at her head. However, the vampire narrowly avoided it, but as she did so, her arm was hit again. Seeing this, the main character was both surprised and worried because he finally succeeded. But he realized he had hit his master. He began to apologize in a trembling voice, and he approached and asked her if she was okay. The girl smiled and said that this small scratch was nothing. Her expression unbothered as she casually waved it off, as if the injury were no more than a trivial inconvenience. Kiska then remembers that she even tore her arm off once. Judith congratulated his disciple. The girl said that he had completed the first mission. Kiska bowed his head to thank his master. He thought he was finally stronger, thanks in part to his puppet sword and fencing skills. He happily realized that becoming Judith's disciple was the right decision. At that moment, the master called him back. She said that the way he fought and his movements were very normal, so she asked if he had any fighting skills. Kiska was confused. He recalled everything he had been through and replied that he actually didn't have many skills. Even more impressive, the vampire said that if that were the case, you must have a lot of talent. While the boy thought, the truth was that he actually had combat experience. Moments later, the heroes are locked in a room, facing empty-headed and burning horses. At that time, he started thinking about this place. With confidence, he said he could get through by using the secret tunnel his master taught him. At this time, he would have to face the horses whose heads were not on fire, as the master had warned that today would be the actual training session. These monsters quickly released a type of fire sword towards the hero, who used his cursed sword to defend against all attacks. The dark energy swirling around the blade, blocking every strike with an almost unnatural precision. However, at the same time, the vampire threw a knife at the hero. The boy who was able to stop the knife caught it mid-air with a swift motion, his grip firm and unwavering as the blade trembled in his hand, inches from his skin. Judith told him that he needed to keep his arms tensed, and that when fighting multiple enemies he should also make more neat movements. Kiska replied that he would do so, and he prepared to continue fighting. Kiska concentrated. He thought about keeping his arms tense and fighting neatly like his master said. He quickly blocked all the fire swords, a lot easier. Satisfied with the results, he said that he had successfully defended against all the attacks. And at that moment, his master ordered him to attack the monsters. She explained that the empty-headed horses had run out of mana, and with his new sword, they were nothing but lifeless masses of flesh. With an enthusiastic smile, the girl said that he understood that, and for this reason, he should attack them. Immediately, the hero obeyed. He walked towards the empty-headed horses. He thought that he had to move forward, and then he charged the mule on his left, which he did without difficulty. Then he knew he needed to attack the other mule on his right, and with a single blow he defeated it. Then he realized that after defeating 2 empty-headed horses, a third one was trying to escape. But he caught up in time, and he took it down with just one strike of his sword, the blade cutting through the air with terrifying speed, cleaving through the opponent effortlessly. In the distance, the master seemed satisfied when witnessing his disciple's performance. She smiled, she congratulated Kiska on this result, and he thanked her. However, the main character said that, without the girl's help, he probably wouldn't be alive today. Judith commented that if he died in this place, it would take decades for her to leave. And even she didn't know how long it would take. She then said that it would make him stronger, and for that reason, he should be a little more confident. Hearing that, the disciple bowed his head and shouted that he would do his best. At that moment, the system announced that the monster extermination had been confirmed, and points were being added. Seeing this, the vampire commented that it looked like the boy had earned some skill points, so she suggested he start using them. He did so, and he opened the status screen in front of him. Kiska saw that he had finally occupied all 5 skill slots, which touched him. Looking at the list, he saw he currently had 15 points available to use. He felt stronger thanks to his fencing and puppetry skills and understood that if he had to choose between all the skills, he would choose these 2. However, he quickly realized that he needed another 30 points to upgrade his sword fighting skills and another amount of points to upgrade his puppetry skills. At this time, the master asked him how he was doing. Kiska approached her saying that he wanted to improve his fencing skills and was thinking of accumulating 30 points. Judith said it was a good choice. Then she left the room, her voice calm as she said that that was enough for today. Her steps steady and purposeful, leaving no room for argument. Sometime later, both of them went home, and the vampire seemed impatient about something. Breaking the silence, she asked Kiska if he was done yet, and he replied that it was done and would bring it. He smiled and he approached his master, apologizing for the delay. At this moment, he remembered that his job had always been to prepare tea for his master since he became her disciple. This tea is brewed from the blood of monsters. After tasting it, the vampire said that the tea was delicious, while the hero thought about how she liked to drink monster blood from a teacup. He never wanted to drink monster blood, but when he saw a vampire drinking it, he thought it must be delicious. Interrupting his thoughts, Judith asked about dinner. Kiska explains that the meal is almost done. A while later, he brought dinner to his master's table, thanked her for her patience, and explained that it was steak from an empty-headed horse. Looking dejected, Judith said that it was no different from yesterday. He felt embarrassed. The hero explained that he couldn't do much because they didn't have many ingredients, but he defeated a few monster plants and made a salad. However, the vampire revealed that she didn't like salad very much because it wasn't delicious. Kiska told the girl that if she did not eat vegetables, she would become malnourished. However, the girl explained that she was a vampire, so she did not need nutrition, her eyes glinting with a hint of amusement as she dismissed the concern with a casual shrug. Leaving there, the hero asked her to wait a bit. A while later, he returned with some dungeon balls. This made the vampire very excited, and the disciple explained that he had found them behind a dry tree while gathering leaves and had decided to pick them. He smiled. He said that at first he planned to leave them for a few days before harvesting, thinking they could be used for something later. But he changed his mind because today is a special day. After that, the 2 started eating, sharing a quiet moment as they savored their meal, the sounds of their eating filling the silence between them. Breaking the silence, the hero said that if he had more ingredients, he could make a better dish. The vampire replied that if she could leave the dungeon, she could gather more ingredients. The hero curiously asked her that she had said before that she had left the dungeon. So was that true? Judith replied that yes, and that she had been out many times before. Because dungeons are more suitable for vampires because they are not exposed to sunlight. Kiska begins to understand. He says that then a new boss appeared, and now she is forbidden to leave this place. However, the vampire said that could be one of the reasons, but not the only one. This made the girl's disciple feel confused. She explains that not long ago, there was a room separate from the boss rooms, and it had a teleportation ring, allowing people to enter and exit the dungeon. Kiska said in shock that he didn't know such a thing existed. Judith felt a bit depressed. The girl said that she was the only one who knew about it, but one day, someone appeared and destroyed it. She concluded that that was the reason why she could no longer leave the dungeon. Kiska was surprised that the hero asked her if she knew who did it, but she replied that she did not know anyone who could do that. However, Judith remembers something and says that there might be someone involved. Judith explains that the people who sealed a Geha in this place were probably the same people who destroyed the teleportation ring. Hearing the name Agaha, the hero was stunned and felt a chill run down his spine. Judith went on to say that they destroyed the teleportation ring to ensure that the girl could not escape from the dungeon. Kiska asked the vampire if she knew about Ageha, and she replied that of course she knew. She comments that Ageha is an excellent person. She reveals that it was Ageha who defeated the Monster King, and this information shocked the hero once again. He also felt worried, thinking this was strange, because the story you heard is completely different. In a famous story, it is said that the Monster King was killed by a warrior named Elegion, who was known as a great hero. He wondered if it was really Agha who did it. Wanting to know more about the former heroine, he asked the vampire if Agha was sealed in the dungeon. She replied that she didn't know the details, but then tells Kiska that she needs to warn him about something. With a serious expression, she told him to never try to break Ageha's seal, no matter the reason or circumstances. She explains that Agha could be the one who defeated the Monster King, and is powerful enough to destroy the world, and she can't imagine what would happen if someone broke her seal. Kiska is worried. The main character says he understands. While thinking that in a previous life he had accidentally broken Ageha's seal, and you hope this won't cause you any problems in the future, though deep down, you can't shake the feeling that this decision will come back to haunt you when least expected. The hero asked Judith if he could ask her a question. She agreed. Kiska asked if she would eat the fruits he was planning to eat, but she shyly denied it. The hero explains that he cannot eat the fruit, but Judith still insists that she does not eat them. Changing the subject, she said it was time to go to bed. Meanwhile, the main character thinks that this feeling is like a master-slave relationship. After that, he and she prepared to face the villain. Anger flared. In a single movement with his sword, he attacked. Training with Judith continued over the course of several months, and his skills improved along with his skill points. His swordsmanship skills also improved. Kiska happily told Judith that his swordsmanship skills had leveled up. She smiled. The girl replied that at this rate, she believed the day they would escape from the dungeon was approaching. Kiska excitedly agreed. He clenched his hands with confidence. He said, "I will become strong enough to get you out of here." The girl smiled shyly and said that he was getting better at this. With his hand behind his head, the hero felt embarrassed. After that, he said he was going to skin the monster, and she replied with an okay. The girl said she would go ahead and return to the lair. When Kiska finished his work, he raised his hand close to the monster and summoned the sword immediately after. He thought that skinning monsters was the disciple's duty, and so he quickly finished the job. Returned to the hideout with the rest of the monster's body. He announced that he was back. However, he accidentally saw Judith when she was naked. Immediately, he panicked and dropped his bag on the ground, his heart racing as he frantically searched through it, hoping he hadn't forgotten something important. She quickly covered the parts that needed to be covered, but he was so confused and embarrassed. The main character apologized and quickly ran away. Suddenly, Judith called out, shouting. Kiska was worried. He thought she was angry, but she wasn't dressed yet. She laughed and said that his reaction was interesting. Suspiciously, she added that she already knew about this. You sweat nervously. Don't know what to say. Sometime later, he finished his dinner and finally finished the day's work. The main character informs Judith that he washed the dishes. His voice casual, yet with a hint of pride, as if eager to show that he had taken care of the task without being asked. Then the girl turned towards the bed with sweet eyes. She called Kiska's name, embarrassed but unable to resist. She asked if Kiska wanted to sleep with her. He was shocked by the question, his face frozen in surprise. He asked why she asked so suddenly and if there was any special reason. She looked aside shyly, her cheeks red, and said there was no reason. But she herself didn't believe what she said. She went on to say that she just didn't want to sleep alone tonight. He was silent for a moment, then answered. If that was all, he would sleep in his room, hoping for a peaceful rest, though a nagging feeling told him that the calm wouldn't last for long. However, she still insisted. Even though she was embarrassed, she said that he was acting colder than usual. Kiska found her words cute, and if he didn't do as she asked, he would feel guilty for the rest of his life. So he said he understood, and they would sleep together tonight. The girl smiled happily when she saw Kiska. Judith lay down, and before long, he lay down on the bed next to her. They both had silly smiles, happily looking at each other. Looking at his face, she thought that if they were going to sleep together, there was nothing wrong with saying these things. So she started the story, calling Kiska's name. He responded and looked at her. She continued. It seems like it's been a long time since we met. He happily remembered. He nodded. He remembered that when he first met her, he only thought about how scary she was. Now they were sleeping together, and it felt so strange looking back. He called Judith's name and asked, In the beginning, did you want to kill me? She was worried. She replied, You know what? And asked him again calmly. He looked up and smiled, and he felt certain she thought he could see right through her. But Kiska only knows this because she has killed him many times before. Judith apologizes, and she said with shame that the only people she had ever met tried to kill her the moment they saw her. That's why she's always on guard. Kiska replied that he was not like that, and that he did not hate her, even though she had killed him many times. Whether she likes it or not, he is what he is because of her. Therefore, he is grateful and has no reason to resent her. She climbed on top of him close to his face, saying she was relieved to hear him say he didn't hate her. Kiska felt embarrassed by her closeness while holding his face. She came closer and asked him what he thought when he saw her naked. Kiska blushed and didn't know what to say. She smiled sweetly, saying he could be honest with her. He admits she is very beautiful. Judith was not satisfied. The vampire asked him what else he thought. He repeats that she is very beautiful. The girl insisted further, and he said that besides that, she looked cute. She said he must have thought of something else. Kiska finally admitted that she looked voluptuous. She was embarrassed and said he was a pervert. Kiska was embarrassed because he didn't expect her to call him that. The silver-haired boy insisted that she shouldn't tease him like that. Judith found it funny and apologized. She adjusted herself and finally asked him, what would he do if she exposed her naked body again? Kiska was startled by the question, his eyes lost in her gaze. In that moment, he couldn't help but think about the two important women in his life. After what happened to Namiya, he knew he had to restrain himself, but if he refused her, could something as bad as a geha happen again? He sat up and called Judith with a sad voice. Judith didn't understand what was going on. After listening, her face was full of worry, wondering what had just happened. Kiska said he didn't think his life was that bad right now. A smile appeared on the vampire's face again, and she replied that she felt the same way. He went on to say that it was scary. Confused, she asked why. He replied that if he continued to live a comfortable life like this, he was afraid his spirit of revenge would disappear. When the bears kept killing him, he cursed his fate. But now he is strong enough to defeat monsters and has a cute girl by his side. Kiska could not bear to continue living such a life, so he called Judith. He said he loved her, but apologized because he wasn't ready yet. She bowed her head and said she understood, her voice soft but resolute, as if accepting the weight of the situation while quietly preparing for whatever came next. Then kissed him passionately. Kiska thinks he loves her, but to move forward, he needed to resolve many things. With hope, she asked him if he would continue their relationship after he had taken his revenge. He felt very happy to see her understand his side. When she was about to say something, a figure appeared behind her. Suddenly, a geha appeared and beheaded her with a sword as her head fell off. The vampire promptly said that she loved him. He couldn't believe what his eyes were seeing, his mind struggling to process the impossible sight before him, as if reality itself had shifted in a way he couldn't comprehend. Judith's heavy body fell on top of him. The heroine coldly asked why he couldn't choose her, but could choose that type of girl. With creepy eyes, she told him not to joke with her. The boy went back in time, and he hoped that she would remember him, even after everything was over. The thought lingering in his mind as he watched her walk away, unsure of what the future would hold. When I met her at the end of the hallway, Kiska called out to her while drinking tea. She said it was strange because she never imagined an intruder could go so far. He felt discouraged but guessed that she had forgotten him. However, he did not lose hope, so he introduced himself as Kiska and asked her if she remembered him. Perhaps his name will jog her memories. The vampire repeats his name, but unfortunately, she doesn't remember anyone like him. Her eyes blank with confusion as she searched her memories, finding no trace of their past connection. The ground beneath his feet collapsed, leaving him in complete despair. The feeling of uselessness spread, and he felt that he was about to lose his mind. He began to cry in despair, realizing he would have to do it all over again. Shocked by his reaction, Judith asked if the man was okay. He accepted what he had to do, as he had done countless times, his heart broken. Kiska knelt down and said he had a request for her. The girl was surprised by his actions. Kiska firmly asked her to accept him as a disciple. The vampire was surprised by his request. Once again, he will have to become Judith's disciple, and they need to escape this dungeon together. Even though she knew she could kill him again, but he was still determined to return to the same place, as many times as he wanted. Suddenly, he looked at her face, and she was no longer there. Kiska suffered again when he saw his woman dead. The girl Ageha reappears, stepping into the room with a calm yet intense presence. Her eyes sharp as if she had returned with a purpose that was yet to be revealed, and reminded him that she had warned him before. She rushed at the boy. She declared that if he got involved with another woman, she would not forgive him. She attacks in such a way that her sword pierces Kiska's throat. Time resets fatigue and injury, erasing the toll of battle and the weight of exhaustion, leaving everything as if it had never happened, but at a cost yet to be understood. He couldn't approach Judith, and if he did, they would both be killed. The silver-haired boy remembered everything he had learned from Judith. Dungeon structure and secret paths, treasure chest locations, sword-fighting techniques, and how to control the parasitic sword. Perhaps their relationship has ended, but the lessons she taught him still exist in his mind. The man walked down the hallway again. He told himself that he would escape this dungeon alone. In Kiska's mind, he thanked Judith. The wisdom and experience she has imparted to him, will be used to escape this place, guiding his every move as he applies her, teachings to navigate the dangers ahead. He approached the sword. His body was tense. He grabbed the puppet's sword, holding it by the blade instead of the hilt. In one motion, he swallowed the blade. The boy became paralyzed. And inside me, the curse appeared again, surging to life with a dark, suffocating energy, as if it had been lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to reclaim its hold. Kiska greeted him again and wondered why this kept happening. A sense of confusion and frustration creeping into her voice as she struggled to understand the strange events unfolding around them. It feels like they've met before. He said something similar last time. Kiska was worried. He asked the sword for help, begging him to lend his strength. The sword thinks about what it should do, but if it were like before, it would agree immediately. Kiska worriedly asked if there was a problem. The sword has its own goals and wants to know if obeying him will help it achieve those goals. Kiska was confused. The boy asked what goal a monster could have. The answer is simple. It's about being human. Kiska was surprised because it lives by sucking human blood like a parasite, taking complete control. The human body would prevent it from doing that, so if it controlled your body, it wouldn't be able to become human. The shadow is uncertain, as it has controlled many humans, but has never tried to become one of them. Surprisingly, obeying him could bring it closer to its goal of becoming human. Kiska was scared. The boy asked if it would allow him to borrow its power. The shadow confirmed that he was right. Kiska feels excited, and the shadow said that for some reason, obeying him felt like destiny. It will faithfully follow your every command, its unwavering loyalty etched into its very being, ready to carry out your wishes without question or hesitation. He successfully controlled the puppet. The skill, Lord of the Parasitic Sword 1, has been learned, along with a secondary skill, Black Sword. Now with sword in hand, and confident that I can fight again, Kiska continued to move forward. The next goal is combat ability. He successfully acquired another sword skill, and he set his sights on his next target, the Crystal of Wisdom. However, the chest containing it is located right in front of the boss room, which means it will take some time to get there, not to mention the danger. Last time he had obtained the granite attribute, but had to wait until he had a chance to use it. Now, going there no longer makes sense. The most important thing right now is his current strength. He only hunts monsters he can handle and improves his swordsmanship. Confident, he proceeds as planned. And he ran to his goal. Kiska entered the battle, her movements swift and calculated, her eyes burning with determination as she prepared to face whatever threat lay ahead and kill all enemies, leaving no one behind to tell the tale. In this way, he gains additional skill points, enough to upgrade. He cleaned everything up, and it will take some time for it to recover. In this case, he should go to the Wolf's Den now. But it couldn't because Judith got there first. They absolutely cannot meet each other. The two were not close in this life. So if she saw him, she would likely be killed, though they happened to come near. But a negative spirit, Asia, may come to kill them. The entire dungeon belongs to Judith. The boy must find a way to avoid meeting Judith and continue hunting monsters. He was worried and didn't know what to do. The sword spoke. It commented that he seemed confused. The main character is startled, because he didn't know the puppet's sword could talk. The sword said that it thought it would take a while longer to develop the ability to speak. Its voice still raspy and unfamiliar, yet surprisingly clear as it expressed a hint of impatience. But perhaps because the two got along so well, the relationship between the user and the tool gave the puppet sword the ability to speak. The sword asked with concern what was bothering its owner. Kiska replied that he wanted to collect more skill points and asked if the sword had a way to do that. The sword warned that there were some opportunities ahead, but at his current level, he would only die. Even so, he still decided to face them, his resolve unwavering as he steeled himself for the challenge, knowing the odds were stacked against him but refusing to back down. And they headed towards the Knight's Hall. Before his eyes were 3 soldiers in golden armor, and he knew they were stronger than wolves. When he saw 20 soldiers, Kiska remembered the black sword she was carrying. One of them rushed to attack him, but he defended successfully. The others also rushed in, but he was still able to repel them with the power of his sword. Feeling satisfied with the results, he remembered that the wolves used to have no weapons, But this time his enemy was heavily armed. Kiska took a deep breath, regained her courage, and decided to face them. He mocked them, calling them weaklings. Some soldiers tried to attack him with their swords. Kiska crouched to avoid the attacks, and the Black Sword commented that it wasn't a bad move. He stood up and attacked the two soldiers, confidently admitting that whether he liked it or not, he was very confident in group battles. He thought that although this strategy was very effective and an ideal way to earn skill points, but fortunately it is also very effective in reducing enemies. Kiska continued to call out to the soldiers again, urging them to face her in this battle. He was surprised by an attack from all sides. Many swords approached his body. The weapons started to injure him, and he realized this was not good when he was attacked. The boy realized he must have been carried away. The scene changes and suddenly he is alone. Kiska smiled and said he returned to this place again and felt a bit nostalgic. First he was killed by a werewolf and then by a soldier wearing golden armor. The boy realized he had died hundreds of times. At that moment the boy arose with hope in his eyes. He understood that no matter how many times he died, you will always start again. Kiska pressed a brick on the wall. The sword asked if his teacher knew about the secret passage. Kiska that he didn't know much about it. He remembered the last moments of the battle with the golden-armored soldiers. He tried to fight them again, and died just like before. However, no matter how many times you die, you will always have to start over. Back to the beginning. Kiska didn't expect things to end like this. He remembered the peaceful days when he lived with Judith. He approached the Black Sword. He looked at it in wonder and asked it to give him all its power. The Black Sword transformed into a strange form and revealed that it was honored to meet its master. Kiska didn't understand what just happened. The black shape asked if there was a problem. He replied that it was nothing. It's just that he noticed that its shape looked more human-like than he thought. The creature revealed that it didn't know it looked like this either. However, recently, its shape has gradually changed. Kiska noticed that every time she looked at the Black Sword, it seemed more human. He thought that maybe it would escape the saving cycle and start again. Kiska asked if this is a good thing for the sword, since it dreams of becoming human. The creature was startled. The sword asked him how he knew about that dream. Both looked at each other in surprise. Kiska replied that he could understand someone's ambition just through their eyes. The creature was amazed, and it revealed that it wants to partner with Kiska. Because you are a resilient person. Kiska suddenly noticed a change in the surrounding space. Circles appeared on the ground, and from there, warriors in golden armor stepped out. Kiska confidently faced them because he had gone through many challenges. Although they may have been the first to confront him, he has died at their hands countless times. No matter how strong they are, Kiska knew that he would win in the end. He declared that this time would be different. His blade felt his strong confidence. The warriors prepared to attack, but Kiska was familiar with the enemy. He stood firmly, counting silently in his head. 1, 2, 3. When the countdown ended, he quickly dodged an attack. Kiska recognizes a friendly fire glitch when attacks accidentally hit enemy allies. Immediately, he knew he had to continue dodging. The warriors continued to attack, and he quickly raised his sword. He made a strong downward slash. In doing so, he earned skill points. The Black Sword was amazed at his master's abilities. Kiska calmly said that he clearly understood his opponent's tactics. However, while conversing with the talking sword, he suddenly realized that the warriors had started aiming at his back. He turned and lowered his center of gravity, and with a swift blow, the boy wounded another enemy. No two have been defeated yet. Kiska realizes everything is going according to his plan. Kiska reveals that he can handle this. He beheaded another soldier. The boy recognized it as the fourth name. A notification appeared, signaling that he had earned more points. Kiska looked at the screen and noticed that the SP stats of the monsters here were 10 times higher than elsewhere. They were on a completely different level. After facing 4 monsters, the main character collects 416 SP. He improved his sword skills and Parasite Master sword skills. The sword also gains the Pulsing sword skill. Kiska encouraged his sword. They are now satisfied with the new possibilities. Kiska activates the sword's new function, watching in awe as a brilliant light envelops the blade, signaling its upgraded power, making it bigger and stronger. Kiska felt a familiar weight in her hand and wondered why. Some guards continued to attack. They angrily rushed at the boy. The sword seems to be merging with the main character's arm, its glowing hilt slowly fusing with their skin, as if it were becoming a part of them, pulsing with an unfamiliar energy. Kiska let the sword's automatic function take over, defeating one more guard. The guard fell motionless. Then he realized the sword's parasitic ability could actually fight on his behalf. The sword complemented its owner's fighting ability, and he returned the compliment. The boy launched a guard into the distance. The feeling of victory is near. But then he suddenly remembered the stupid reason why he died last time. Only a few guards remain. Confident boy. But suddenly, something unexpected happened. All the guards turned around, and they bowed to someone who has just entered. Kiska knelt down. The sword said no mention of this. The sword explains that the man who arrived on horseback is the boss of this place. He is an SAZ-level monster, and Kiska felt scared at what she saw. Kiska asked his sword if they had a chance to defend themselves. The sword replied that it all depended on the owner and that its previous owner was dead. Even though I feel worried, Kiska still says that things will go better than with the sword's previous owner. The sword encouraged him. It says that teamwork isn't just for showing off. Kiska, with her experience fighting through many battles using puppet techniques, will not easily lose to any common enemy. He used the sword to block an attack. Kiska noticed that the guards had not left the path, and you will have to clear them all with a single blow. He prepares the puppet technique with his sword, and he unleashed many attacks in all directions. His strikes swift and relentless, creating a whirlwind of chaos as he fought with every ounce of his strength. In the blink of an eye, all the soldiers died. The black sword was amazed by its master's performance. He realized he did very well, even though it was the first time using that technique. Kiska knew he had used it before. Kiska heard the sound of horse hooves. He knew there was only one more enemy left to kill. Only the knight remained at that time. The enemy rushed at Kiska with his spear raised high, eyes blazing with unrelenting fury. The boy used his sword as a shield, causes the enemy's strength to push Kiska back. He realized that Mag was extremely strong. He turned to his sword and asked if it could help him. The sword said it would try. Suddenly, the black sword rose up, pulling its owner up with it, one of the first attacks made. But the enemy counterattacked with his spear. Kiska tried to defend herself, and he raised his sword again. To attack the soldier, Kiska realized his opponent was good because he was struggling to do damage. Thinking this way, Kiska believes he can lose. Kiska attacks again, and he quickly defended himself. He got out of that situation. With the help of Black Sword, he reveals that he cannot avoid it, and Kiska needs to use that technique. Kiska's loyal weapon warns that it could kill him. Kiska smiled sarcastically, her eyes glinting with amusement as she effortlessly dodged the spear, mocking her opponent's futile attempt with a flick of her wrist. He raised his sword and said that he was used to death. Then he stabbed his sword into the ground to gain momentum. Then he jumped up, sword in hand. Kiska pondered that if he couldn't damage the knight because of the spear, you will have to destroy it. Kiska uses a puppet technique with the sword, creating a giant circle of attack. He aimed straight at the guard's spear. And finally, when he landed, he cut his opponent in half. The boy looked pleased with his victory. You earn extra skill points. The black sword praises its owner and reveals that it can reach level 3. With this information, Kiska opened her screen and realized something. He had enough points to upgrade his sword, and he decided to use them to improve his weapons. The black sword sensed the change that was happening. Suddenly, it turns into a ferocious creature. Kiska was surprised by the sword's new shape, but the creature appeared satisfied and said that this was what it had always been looking for. The boy wondered what it could do when it was no longer in sword form. It reveals that it can now eat. Without further explanation, it devours its owner, and from there, it can eventually become human. Kiska dies again and starts over, her form disintegrating into the shadows before being reborn in the same moment, the cycle repeating as if fate itself refused to let her escape. You blame yourself for your failure. He realized that he had never realized that the sword's ultimate goal was to defeat himself. He started thinking, should you stop using your weapon? And Kiska wondered if she should try to take the sword from her enemies, feeling its power coursing through her arm, but also sensing the risk of losing control over its immense, unpredictable force. However, he realized that this wouldn't work because he needed the sword's automatic functions. He felt there was something familiar about the sword's scent, perhaps a compatibility between them. Kiska was angry at being betrayed by the sword, her grip tightening around its hilt as the blade pulsed with a dark, foreign energy, mocking her trust and leaving her feeling both powerless and consumed by a growing sense of betrayal. Kiska suddenly stood up and started walking. He meets a creature that could become his sword. He believed that the creature also had its own plans. The black sword said that it was an honor to meet him, its voice cold and distant, yet carrying an unsettling weight of ancient power, as though it had been waiting for this moment for far longer than anyone could comprehend. Then, with a voice filled with an eerie urgency, it asked to evolve again, craving an even darker and more powerful form. But Kiska refused. The Sword of Despair said it would be much stronger at level 3, but Kiska replied. Kiska clearly understood the true purpose of her weapon. The black sword gave up, and he asked him how he knew everything. The boy wondered if the sword had no intention of keeping this secret a while longer. Kiska thought she could give up the sword right now and take the one the enemy left behind. The black sword called out its owner's name, but before he could respond, it brought me close to your neck and asked if you really thought you were smarter than it. He was scared because it seemed like the sword was using its automatic functions. The sword said that it would leave the choice to the owner, its voice echoing in his mind, a silent yet powerful reminder that the fate of their path rested entirely in his hands. It asked him if he wanted to die now or be eaten by the beast later. Kiska knew that both options were terrible for her. He calls the sword a puppet, and he asked to negotiate. Weapons seemed to like this idea. Kiska said that it would make sense for him to die if the sword wanted to become human. The sword replied that, in its opinion, it would be better if he chose to be eaten by the beast. Kiska, in desperation, asked if she really needed to be eaten. The weapon replies that it doesn't have to be like that. Any strong human can solve this problem. The sword asked curiously, what if its owner could find a strong human for it? As soon as its owner agrees, it returned to the ground, the sword urging its owner to haste. Otherwise, he will be the one to be devoured. Kiska is still recovering from the shock. When he understood, he thought that logically, the person being sacrificed should be Ageha. He doesn't have good memories of her because she killed him many times. The main character catches her when the barrier is broken. He will have a chance to kill her. On the other hand, Ageha is a hero who saved the world, even though she made Kiska suffer. She is the person the world needs. This means Judith will be the one to sacrifice. Kiska cannot accept this possibility. Even though their relationship ended, he still felt grateful to her. He remembered that Judith was also a very dangerous person, and could attack if necessary. Kiska looked at the symbols on the ground, and took another step forward. He remembered the hero who saved the world and the vampire who was feared by the people. Suddenly a beam of light enveloped him. He wondered which of them would die. Inside a capsule appeared an Ageha, and at that moment Kiska knew that it was she who had to die. The black sword says there is a barrier which cannot be swallowed. Kiska is confident that she can easily break that barrier, and your weapon requires immediate action. However, Kiska hesitated, revealing that since he started saving and restarting his life, he had lost his sense of self-respect. No longer feel anything about my own death. So how would you truly feel about someone else's death, especially if it were someone you knew or had a connection with? Suddenly his expression flashed with worry. He didn't know if he could really kill an Ageha. The black sword urged him to continue. Kiska thinks that there is still a possibility that Ageha could kill him in the future, so this is what you need to do. The boy began to feel nauseous. He felt worse doing this, a heavy weight pressing down on his chest as guilt and doubt gnawed at him. Each action feeling like a betrayal of everything he once believed in. Kiska remembered all the times Ageha told him she loved him. You can't kill someone who says they love you. Kiska cried. He asked the weapon to cut off his head. You can't do that. The sword revealed there was no other way. At last it said to swallow him whole. Kiska was surprised. He asked if the weapon really wouldn't kill him. The sword asked if that was what he wanted, but in the end the hero denied it. Then the sword said that when it saw its master, it realized that his thoughts were like the thoughts of a human being. The boy thanked his sword. The weapon told him to stop because it was strange. Kiska will find a way to turn the sword into a human. His weapon seems to like the idea. In a scene change, the sword praises the place where they are. Kiska says they should rest for the rest of the day, and together they must decide how to proceed. The boy remembers that this place holds bad memories of Ageha's suicide, but also the happy time she spent with Kiska, and because Judith had never used this place, so it's best for both of them to rest. Kiska asked the sword if there was another way for it to become human without having to devour another person's life. The sword replied that there was none. Its owner once thought that it could become human by being a parasite and hunting monsters, and the sword also thought the same. However, deep inside, it knows that it can only become human by destroying others. But to do that, it needs to reach level 3, and previous owners died before reaching that stage. Their dreams and ambitions crushed by the weight of the sword's curse, leaving only a trail of broken hopes in its wake. The weapon explains that depending on others has become too dangerous, so it has begun to parasitize itself to control itself. However, it has not yet reached the level of a true predator. Kiska was amazed at the sword's abilities. The black sword also admitted that even it was surprised. Its dark voice tinged with something akin to awe as it acknowledged the unexpected strength and resolve of its current wielder. For no one has ever used it better than Kiska. Kiska feels happy, and he understood that this was probably one of the reasons the sword had allowed him to survive. Recognizing that its power was not simply to destroy, but to test his strength and resilience in ways he had yet to fully comprehend. The black sword asked why its owner was imprisoned in Katarov's prison. The boy tried to remember and looked at the sword. He thought he would have to tell him everything. After a long story, the silence hung heavy in the air, as if the weight of everything said had settled over them, leaving no room for further words. The sword commented that its owner had gone through many trials. Kiska says that no one in the village is on his side, They still hate him until today. His weapon suggests that it will devour everyone in the village. The boy was amazed at the idea, his eyes widening as the concept took root in his mind. A sense of wonder and disbelief swirling within him at the possibilities it presented. That will be his revenge. And in the dream of the sword, he holds his sword, and Kiska happily asked if it could swallow them all. The sword revealed that it would be easy. Kiska held his sword with courage. He believed that they could both do it. He told his weapons not to leave anyone behind. In that case, they will start the next day. 2 ends of the dungeon lay before him, each path shrouded in darkness and uncertainty, tempting him with different dangers and untold secrets that beckoned from beyond. Kiska pointed her sword at a giant hawk. They will move forward until they escape. With just one strike, Kiska destroys one of her enemies, leaving nothing behind but a fading scream and shattered armor. The weapon is impressed by its owner. Kiska reveals that even S-rank bosses are no match for them. Now that they've come this far, the only remaining goal is the door to escape the dungeon. Kiska walked towards the door, but suddenly Judith appeared in front of him. She was surprised to not see the sword in its usual position. Judith looked at Kiska sarcastically and asked what was going on. Kiska was surprised to see her, her eyes widening in disbelief as the familiar figure appeared before her, a mixture of confusion and curiosity flooding her mind. Judith raised her hand, her eyes filled with indignation. She begins to activate her powers, stating that Kiska is clearly carrying a dangerous weapon. A wave of power burst from her hand, and the girl said she would kill anyone who possessed the parasitic sword. Kiska suddenly thought this was bad, the black sword said. It had detected the danger coming from her. Kiska knows that very well. They were very close to escaping the dungeon. Kiska wonders if there is a need to fight Judith while the girl asks if he is ready. Judith rushed at him, holding 2 swords before attacking. Kiska showed a pained expression. He knelt down and asked her to wait a moment. Judith looked at him with confusion, her brow furrowed as she tried to make sense of the strange, unsettling expression on his face, unsure of what to make of his sudden, unexpected reaction. The sword wondered what its master was doing. It was confident that they could defeat her. Kiska quickly covered the sword's mouth. Then he told it to let him handle the situation. Kiska then asked her if she was the vampire Judith was lusting after. The girl replied that he at least had some manners. Kiska bowed to her and asked if she would allow them to pass. Judith commented that the sword he carried was dangerous and must be destroyed to avoid causing trouble later. Kiska calmly replied that she didn't need to worry about it. Kiska reveals that he is in control of the sword and can control it. The vampire looked surprised. She couldn't imagine anyone being able to control the sword. Kiska explains that someone taught him how to do it, but he knew it was Judith's knowledge that had helped him achieve this. Hearing this, Judith commented that he didn't seem like he was lying and finally allowed them to pass. Kiska started to thank her. He felt relieved that he didn't have to confront her. As they walked past the vampire, the black sword spoke, commenting that she was a very arrogant woman. Kiska is worried about this, and he immediately responded, "Defend against an attack from Judith." The girl said that the sword was rude. Both Kiska and the sword felt afraid of her, and they began to run away, Kiska breathing heavily, her lungs burning with each frantic step, her mind racing as she pushed her body to its limits to escape the looming danger. Kiska reveals that they have found a way out of this situation. The black sword couldn't stop laughing. He found what just happened very interesting. However, in this situation, it was a good thing that they escaped, because no one knew what might happen next. The sword asked if its owner was angry, and Kiska replied that he was a bit upset. The sword comments coldly that they can completely handle the girl, its voice dripping with confidence, as if her defeat was already a foregone conclusion. No challenge at all. Kiska thinks that might be true. But anyway, she's not someone he wants to confront. The sword asked why, and Kiska tried to explain, but then he suddenly remembered that this was not something that could be said simply. The sword comments that Kiska certainly likes girls like her. Kiska hastily denied it, but the sword quickly noticed he was blushing. He stood up, and he asked the sword to stop teasing him. The sword asked if the two would leave now, and Kiska nodded. He confirmed that now he just needed to keep moving forward. He was confident that he would defeat the dungeon boss. They entered a hallway, and the black sword admitted that this was the first time it had come to this place. Kiska stopped in front of a chest, her heart pounding as she eyed it cautiously, sensing that whatever lay inside could either aid her or make things far worse. And the sword asked curiously what was in it. Kiska replied that inside was a crystal of wisdom. Kiska opened the chest. He hopes to have the opportunity to harness the power of the crystal. A powerful crystal appeared in the chest, and immediately a screen pops up, notifying that the effect will activate automatically. The next screen said he had received a new ability. Evaluate. Kiska looked confused. He recalled that this ability was on his list, but was only ranked D, almost useless. However, Kiska decided to try using the new ability, but it was locked because his level was too low, the intricate mechanism mocking him with its unyielding design, leaving him frustrated and trapped with no way to open it. He reopened the screen and saw that he had enough points to upgrade the sword. Kiska will also upgrade her Provoke and Evaluate skills again. Kiska decided to try using her new ability, focusing all her energy into it as she channeled the power, hoping it would be enough to unlock the chest and reveal its secrets. He raised his hand and summoned new power, and suddenly, his black sword became sharper than ever. Kiska now understood that. At this level, leveling up is no longer so important. The sword asked him why he was complaining before. Kiska explains that he tried using his new ability to evaluate the sword, but only received useless information. The sword complained that he was admiring her beauty without permission. Kiska asks if she is a beautiful girl, and he asked her to stop joking. The sword swayed, and she replied that she would show him when she truly became a girl. Kiska felt curious. He didn't know what kind of person the sword would become when it transformed into a human. He said he was ready now that the upgrade was complete. Kiska looked at the dungeon exit door. Then he confidently walked towards it, his steps firm and purposeful. A sense of determination in his eyes as he prepared to face whatever challenge lay ahead. He stopped a few steps in front of the door, observing it seriously. The sword wondered if its master was nervous, and Kiska admitted that he was indeed feeling a little nervous. The sword thought that she could not help him, but then Kiska heard a battle roar ring out from her as an encouragement to her master. Kiska was startled and asked what happened. The sword replied that she was just cheering him on. Kiska laughed at the situation. The sword spoke that he was mocking her, but Kiska denied it. He smiled and thanked the sword. She asked about the solemnity of the situation. Her voice tinged with uncertainty, as if questioning whether the gravity of what was happening had truly been understood by those around her. And Kiska calmly replied that without her, he wouldn't have been able to get this far. The dungeon door opens, and Kiska entered a new hallway, with the door behind him closing behind him. The sword told Kiska that he should save his gratitude for later, because now is when the real challenge begins. The air thick with tension as he braced himself for the trials ahead, knowing that nothing would be the same from this moment on. A creature approaches Kiska, and he realizes that the real battle has just begun. The creature in front of him was a giant SS-class centipede. It rushed to attack him. Kiska immediately prepared a fighting stance. Her body coiled with tension, her eyes scanning the surroundings, ready to react to any movement with deadly precision. At the same time, he read the name of his new ability, Evaluation, feeling a strange mix of curiosity and anticipation, wondering what kind of power or insight this new skill would grant him in the battles to come. An information screen appeared, indicating that the centipede's venom could corrode even metal. Kiska is worried, realizing this will be a difficult battle. The centipede opens its teeth. The centipede shot venom at Kiska, but he was able to dodge. The centipede's venom hit the wall. Kiska knew she would die if she got hit by that attack. So he activated the sword's vibration mode. The power of the black sword is activated. Now, with the autonomous power of the sword, Kiska can avoid venom. Kiska dodged one of the water jets. Kiska pushed himself and jumped up with his sword. This was his moment to attack. His sword collided with the monster's shell. However, he did not understand why his sword could not cut through it. He continued using his powerful weapon, but in the end he was hit hard by the centipede. Kiska crashed into the wall and could barely get up before the monster lunged at him again. At that moment, Kiska's sword helped him avoid the attack. The monster attacks again. The powerful blow sent Kiska flying to the ground. The black sword worriedly asked if his master was okay. Kiska stood up, although not completely healthy. He still struggled. The sword asks what they should do next, and Kiska admits that they cannot avoid this. Finally, the sword agreed that they had no choice but to use that. Kiska rushed up. He uses the puppet technique with the sword. Then he performed a spinning attack. Kiska prayed for this attack to be effective, her grip tightening on her weapon as she focused all her energy into the strike, hoping it would be enough to turn the tide in her favor. But the blow was blocked by the centipede's thick shell. Kiska was surprised. Kiska fell to the ground again. The giant centipede prepared to attack him again, and Kiska realized that none of his attacks were effective against this powerful opponent. The sword suggests that they move and look for the monster's weak point to attack. Kiska understands the problem, and he let the sword's autonomous power guide him. He wondered exactly where he should attack. However, his sword moved towards one of the creature's legs. Kiska tried to attack the animal's legs but still failed. Kiska thought the animal's eyes might be a weak point, and he tried to puncture them but was stopped by one of the creature's claws after pushing his sword back. The monster's claws also pushed Kiska and sent him flying away, his body crashing into the wall with a deafening thud. The force of the impact leaving him momentarily stunned as he struggled to regain his bearings. Kiska was seriously injured. He thought this time it wouldn't work. It's still too early to challenge the giant centipede. He considered silently accepting his death. Even after Kiska dies, time will turn back. The centipede's claws moved closer to his face, but the sword moved on its own to protect its owner. The sword suddenly stood up, its blade trembling with an eerie energy. As if it had a will of its own, defying the laws of physics and preparing for what was to come. The sword asked why Kiska gave up. The boy was too scared to answer. But the sword reminded him of the promise he had once sworn, to turn it into a human. Kiska suddenly remembered that it was true. Kiska stood up thanks to the talking sword. Even though he could go back in time, this sword would no longer be the same as the sword he encountered later. And the promise he made to the sword can only be fulfilled in this life. Yeah, Kiska apologizes for making the sword worry, her voice soft yet sincere as she gently placed a hand on its hilt, feeling a strange bond between them as she acknowledged the weight of their shared journey. Then he immediately switched to an attack stance, saying that now was the time to decide. Kiska believes that the giant termite must have some kind of weakness, and immediately the sword used its automatic power. It angrily rushed towards one of the creature's legs, determined to attack. The giant termite opened its mouth to swallow Kiska, but fortunately he was able to avoid it. Suddenly an idea flashed in his mind. He immediately conveyed his thoughts to the sword. He said he might have found the creature's weakness. The sword encourages him, but Kiska warns that to do this, both will have to sacrifice. The sword accepted, understanding that this was necessary for battle. Kiska smiled, and he thanked his companion. He immediately used his taunt ability, causing the termite to be injured and rush towards it. The giant termite's mouth opened wide again. The boy recited confusing sword techniques. Fast dragon! Kiska then rushed into the creature's mouth. Kiska enters its body, feeling an overwhelming surge of energy as the sword's dark essence begins to merge with her own, flooding her senses with power and a strange, eerie connection to something much older and more dangerous. And he cut it with his sword. The centipede screamed in pain. Kiska knew that with a cut this deep, he could penetrate its shell. Kiska encouraged her sword and it agreed. With a powerful blow, Kiska tried to escape the centipede. He left it seriously injured and he landed on the ground, his body aching from the impact, barely able to push himself up as the pain surged through him. A screen shows that he has killed the monster. After destroying the termites, Kiska received many bonus points. He almost couldn't believe what he had just done. The sword comments that they should celebrate defeating the dungeon's final boss, but at that moment, Kiska suddenly realized he went through so many difficulties. He faced countless challenges and seemingly insurmountable dangers, but in the end, he conquered the most difficult level of the dungeon.